Unit 10, Strategy Implementation. Strategy implementation is the process of putting organizations' various strategies into action by setting annual or short-term objectives, allocating resources, developing programs, policies, structures, functional strategies, etc. Even the best strategic plan will be useful unless it is implemented properly. The strategy implementation is therefore the most difficult element of the strategic management process. This is because there has to be fit between the strategy and the organization. Activating strategies. There is no guarantee that a well-designed strategy is likely to be approved and implemented automatically. The strategic leader must therefore defend the strategy from every angle, communicate how the strategy, when implemented, would benefit the whole organization and secure the wholehearted support of employees working at the various level. To keep things on track, he can list out priorities, program implementation process, budgets, etc. on paper so that nothing is left to chance. While giving a concrete shape to the strategy, you should also take note of regulatory mechanisms that govern business activity and see that everything is in order. Some of the important things to be kept in mind are listed below. Nature of strategy implementation. A successful strategy formulation does not guarantee successful strategy implementation. It affects an organization from top to bottom. It affects all divisional and functional areas of business. It requires the right alignment between the strategy and various activities, processes within the organizations. Also, we have the barriers and issues in strategy implementation. Management must keep in mind that following key issues that arise in implementing strategy and how empowering systems might relate to such issues. The first one is time horizon. Time horizons are periods wherein investments are held until they are needed. Time horizon vary according to the investment goal, short or long. Time horizons also could vary according to the time by which you begin investing. The longer the time horizon, the longer the power of compounding has to work. And the next one is risk considerations. Consideration is that you fall behind your competitors as they innovate and improve their offering faster than you. For example, the introduction of new products or services, mergers and acquisitions would prove unsuccessful. Market or industry changes such as shift in the needs of expectation of customers. Problems with the suppliers and other stakeholders. So the third one is basis of individual rewards. Individual-based rewards provoke a strong and unique dialogue between the employer and employee, clearly communicating what is expected from the individual and what is the exact value organization has placed on the individual's efforts. This can plan goal congruence in the minds of individual employees easily. The fourth one is basis of group rewards. Group reward is a way to compensate a group of people based on the combined contribution to a project or the organization. It has become a widespread and motivating way to reward a group of people for their efforts to achieve a common goal. And the last is corporate and SBU perspective. In a strategic business unit, popularly known as the SBU, is a fully functional unit of a business that has its own vision and direction. Typically, a strategic business unit operates as a separate unit but is also an important part of the company. Model for strategy implementation. According to the Steiner and Miner, the implementation of policies and strategies in concern with the design and management of systems to achieve the best integration of people, structures, processes, and resources in reaching organization purpose. Implementation of strategy therefore involves a number of interrelated decisions, choices, and a broad range of activities. It requires an integration of people, structures, processes, etc. McKinsey 7S model is a good of capturing the importance of all these elements in the implementation of a strategy.
The Seven Framework was developed in 1970s by the well-known consultancy firm, the McKinsey Company of the United States. The 7S framework is illustrated. Superordinate goals or shared values have a strategy, structure, system, staff, style, and skills. 7S framework. This framework basically deals with organizational change. The main thrust of change is not connected only with the organization's strategy. It has to be understood by the complex relationships that exist between strategy, structure, systems, style, staff, skills, and superordinate goals. These are called the 7S of the organizations. Alignment of the framework. Successful implementation of strategy requires the right alignment of different elements within the organization. The McKinsey consultants call strategy, structure, and systems as the hard elements of the organization, and the other four S, style, skills, staff, and superordinate goals as the soft elements of the organization. Merits of 7S framework. The virtue of 7S framework is that it highlights some important organizational interconnections and their role in affecting change. It illustrates in a simple way that the real task of implementing strategy is one of bringing all 7S into harmony. When the 7S are in good alignment, an organization is poised and energized to execute strategy to the best of its ability. Additional merits of 7S framework allows organization to analyze their strengths and weaknesses. With this analysis, they can identify areas which need improvement. It also helps measure their strengths and weaknesses compared to those of their competitors. Limitations of 7S framework. The 7S framework shows that relationships exist and provide some limited clues as to what constitutes more effective strategy implementation. Beyond this, however, it is not precise. For example, the framework says little about the how and why of interrelationships. The model is, therefore, poor in explaining the logic and methodology in developing the links between the elements. Resource allocation. Resource allocation deals with the procurement and commitment of financial, physical, and human resources to strategic tasks for achievement of organizational objectives. This involves the process of providing resources to particular business unit, divisions, factions, etc. for the purpose of implementing strategies. All organizations have at least 5 types of resources. First, physical resources. Physical resources include buildings, production facilities, warehouses, offices, machinery and equipment, vehicles, and physical systems. Certain businesses like wholesale retailers are dependent on physical resources like warehouse and distribution facilities. Other organizations, such as tech startups, need extensive IT infrastructure. Number 2. Financial resources. Financial resources include cash, credit, shares, and bonds. Every organization needs financial assets to pay for rent, utilities, and raw materials, among other expenses. Human resources. Human resources and organization's people are among its most important resources. A hospital, for example, is highly reliant on skilled human resources such as doctors, nurses, physical therapists, and laboratory technicians. And technology resources is an umbrella term for software and associated hardware for automating the human resources function in organizations. Intellectual resources. Intellectual resources such as brand, proprietary knowledge, patents and copyrights, partnerships and customer databases are increasingly important components of a strong business model. Intellectual property resources are difficult to develop but when successfully created may offer substantial value. Importance of resource allocation. A company's ability to acquire sufficient resources needed to support new strategic initiatives and steer to the appropriate organizational units has a major impact on the strategy implementation process. Too little funding arising from constrained financial resources or from slugging management action slows progress and limits the efforts of organizational units to execute their part of the strategic plan effectively. Resource allocation is a powerful means of communicating the strategy in the organization as it gives the signals to all concerned. It will demonstrate what strategy is really in operation. Managing resource conflict. The common approach to resource allocation is through budgetary system. There are, however, many other tools which can be used for this purpose. Some of the important tools used for resource allocation are discussed below. Number 1, BCG matrix. Number 2, PLC-based budgeting. Number 3, zero-based budgeting. And lastly, capital budgeting.
Criteria for resource allocation process. 1. Contribution towards fulfillment of organizational objectives at the center of the organization. The resource allocation task is to steer resources away from areas that are poor at delivering the organization's objectives and toward those that are good at delivering the organization objectives. In large diversified companies, the corporate office plays a major role in allocating resources among various strategies proposed by its operating units or divisions. In many cases, product groups, business units, or functional areas may bid for funds to support their strategic proposals. There are 3 criteria which can be used in allocating resources. 2. Support of key strategies. In many cases, the problem with resource allocation is that the requests for funds usually exceed the funds normally available. Thus, there needs to be some further selection mechanism beyond the delivery of the organization's mission and objectives. This second criteria relates to 2 aspects of resource analysis. First is support of core competencies. Next, enhancement of value chain activities. Last, risk acceptance level of the organization. The factors affecting resource allocation. Resource allocation may not necessarily be a purely rational decision-making process. It is also a behavioral and political process involving people who may be motivated by different objectives. Some of the major factors affecting resource allocation are discussed below. 1. The objectives of the organization. 2. Powerful units. 3. Dominant strategies. 4. Internal politics. And 5. External influences. Next is difficulties in resource allocation. The resource allocation process can sometimes become fairly complex and may even create several difficulties to the strategies. Some of the difficulties that can create problems are 1. Scarcity of resources. 2. Restriction on generating resources. 3. Bloated demands. 4. Negative attitude. 5. Budget battle. 6. Budgetary process. And 7. Use of. The above difficulty strategies should pay maximum attention to resource allocation and prioritize budgeting allocation in the initial stages, taking overall objectives into account. Many budget battles can be avoided if targets resource sharing, prioritization, midway revision, etc. are decided in an atmosphere of cooperative and participation, especially of department and divisional levels. Allocating resources to specific divisions and departments alone does not mean successful implementation of the strategy. If major strategic shifts are occurring, the organization structure is likely to change along with the way resources allocated.